Good morning, everyone. Today, my name is Sang Yoon, and today I'll talk about the U.S. grand strategy on Islam terrorism. But I'm gonna kind of take a fresh approach by using the anthropological tool, so that we can understand the root causes of Islam terrorism better. But just to give you more background of the war on terror, it has been raised for 15 years so far, and it's not likely that we're going to see the end of the tunnel sooner or later, because even worse, the situation in Syria and Iraq is getting worse because of the emergence of Islamic State and the recent decision made by the US to co-opt the moderate Arab groups to fight against the terrorists is kind of a throwback to the Cold War era that we co-opted, the US co-opted the Mujahideen and armed them. So if history is any guide, we should learn from the war on terror so far, and we should take a new approach to finally end the war. So I prepared this picture to remind you of how much the war on terror immersed in every corner of our life, and it is needless to say that it's around us, and it could have been really different if we came to the US to study before the borderline of the war on terror, which was 2001. So from now on, I'll list some misconceptions the current US grand treatise on Islam terrorism is based on, and then next I'm gonna tackle some myth, I think, and I'll wrap up my speech with some recommendations. So these are some misconceptions I think the current US church is based on. So I'll walk through for a minute. So first of all, the US think the Islam terrorism is a political action by the marginalized and the repressed in the society and the community. And second of all, the US think that Islam terrorism is an inferiority expression against the West, especially the US. And third, every Islam sect promotes jihad to its followers. And fourth, those who are out of mind commit a suicide attack or other kinds of extreme form of jihad. And lastly, military victory on the ground will eradicate terrorists once and for all. And based on these misconceptions, the US strategy is focused on kinetic military operations, which often followed by the occupation and establishment of the pro-US regime, which is supposed to prevent the further emergence of terrorist groups. But as was in the case of Iraq, we know very much well that it didn't happen as we wished. So I took an anthropological view, by which I tried to understand their culture, how they internalize their values of terrorism by themselves, which as an outsider, for example, the US cannot understand quite well. So I made a kind of juxtaposition between 3 points. And the first point is that it's not a political action, but it's more like a religious movement. Because terrorist groups and terrorists often rise up and pick up their arms when they feel that their sacred values are contaminated by the external forces, the West, modernization, and particularly the US. And there's a Muslim concept of asabiyya, and it refers to the social solidarity. And for the sake of their social solidarity and harmony, they risk their lives and they waste the holy word as they define. And because it's not a political action which aims to gain some political goal, so they rarely back down in the face of much greater forces or persuasive idea. They risk everything, and they kind of belittle worldly gains for the sake of their religious goal. And it's not an action by some terrorist groups, it's more like a civilization-wide movement. So, for example, there's a famous concept of Ummah, which refers to the which aims to establish the common Muslim community across the world. So it doesn't really make sense to kill off sporadic terrorist groups and wage battles on the ground. And the second point is that it's not really intrinsically anti-Western insurrection, but it's more like an intra-Islam struggle. So,
5 minutes.
So it's more fair to say that the Western modernization just happened to fall into the category of infidel foe to them, rather than vice versa. So I mean, the U.S. is not